Once again, we are on Public Affairs, and I'm here at the MGM Grand, the press room, and definitely we have one of the most important people that we know in boxing because, first of all, he's one of the most educated person that we have ever met in the boxing world. We always love to talk to him, and he's Gary Gittleson. What's interesting is that he manages Brian Viloria. You know him, Brian Viloria, who also is a champion. Gary Gittleson, please greet our listeners worldwide.
It's a pleasure to be with you, and it's a pleasure to always be among Filipino fans who are the best fans in boxing, and I think the best sports fans in the world.
Well, first, I'd like to ask you about Brian Viloria. People have been asking. I know he's been fighting in the Philippines, and there's something coming up again?
January 23rd, we're going to be back in Manila. Brian is going to be defending his IBF junior flyweight title. He's going to be fighting a very, very tough, very highly ranked opponent. It's his mandatory defense against Carlos Tamara, a very tough Colombian who has never been stopped. And Brian is ready for the test.
Mm-hmm. Gary, why is he fighting in the Philippines now?
Brian loves being in the Philippines. It is truly like a second home to him, and the warmth that he's gotten from fans, the people who have gravitated to him, it's like nothing else. And you know, he has a very good fan base here in the United States, but when he goes to the Philippines, it's really like coming home.
Mm-hmm. And what's the future for Brian?
Well, Brian has this mandatory defense, and then after that we're going to look at a very big fight, possibly against Ivan Calderon for a unification fight. Ivan Calderon is undefeated. There's a great amateur history between him and Brian dating back to the Olympic days. It's another fight. It's a smaller version of the fight that we're here for today, for tomorrow, and that's Pacquiao Cotto, because it will be the very best Puerto Rican fighter in Brian's weight class and the very best Filipino fighter in the weight class. So it could be a real big affair. And I see that possibly in March.
Mm-hmm. There was a time when I got the impression that Brian was somehow going to show business and leaving boxing behind. What happened?
Well, Brian has many interests. He's a Renaissance man, and I love that about him. He's very intelligent. He's very educated. He is going to be doing the Solar broadcast of Manny's fight, and he's going to be the analyst for that fight for this event. So Brian is still keeping his hands in show business. I am also helping him sort of prepare for that day when he's no longer fighting, and he will probably have a very good career in show business.
We wish him a lot of good luck. But Gary, we are now here and preparing for tomorrow's fight. Why would this be history-making, and how would you compare this with the Hatton fight?
I think it's a much more difficult test for Manny than the Hatton fight. Hatton was a natural 140-pound fighter. He never really fought well above that weight. This is a much stronger, much more difficult fighter who's not only a natural welterweight, but a big welterweight. It is history-making in that Manny is going for a 7th world title, and I don't believe anyone has ever done that before, including Sugar Ray Leonard and some of the greats. Manny has transcended the sport in record time. I do believe Manny's going to win the fight. I believe it's going to be a great contest, and I believe he's going to become the kind of star that only comes around in this sport once a generation.
I like that. You immediately gave your prediction that Manny's going to win, and people would like to always ask for predictions. But why do you think he's going to win?
I think he's going to win because he's the smartest fighter in the ring I've ever seen. I know very smart individuals who are not smart in the ring. Manny is the smartest ring fighter I've ever seen. He adapts better than anyone I've ever seen. He has a very good corner. Freddie Roach is very experienced, and they work very well together. And Manny's speed, I believe, is the key to this fight. I have spoken with fighters who have been in the ring with Manny and who have sparred with Manny, and they all say the same thing. They say they can never get set when they fight Manny because he's on top of them so quickly. He covers ground so quickly that they can't set and find a range. And they all say the same thing. They all come and say, the guy covers ground so quickly that they can't prepare. And I don't believe Cotto is going to be able to prepare either. I think Manny's he's just going to be too fast for him.
So, Gary, if Manny were to lose, would you be so shocked? And why would he lose?
Look, any fighter can lose. We know that, and every fighter does lose at one point or another in his career. I don't anticipate that Manny will losing, but if he were to lose, it wouldn't be a shameful thing. He's fighting. Let's not forget that Manny started his career at 105 pounds. Every time he goes up in weight class, he defies the odds and gets better and better. At some point, natural physics say that has to stop. But I do believe that Manny has the strength and speed to beat Cotto. If he loses to Cotto, it's no shame because Cotto is one of the great fighters to come around in the last 15 years.
Finally, each time I go on the air, a lot of people, even from other parts of the country, would always ask, when is Mayweather fighting Pacquiao, or when is Pacquiao fighting Mayweather? Will it ever happen?
It's a good question. It's a great question, and I don't have the answer any more than anyone else. I can tell you that these fights occur when smart business people sit down at the table and decide that it's time to happen. I don't believe Mayweather has demonstrated great intelligence in his negotiating. I think Manny has been much more flexible. Manny has a good team of people and advisors around him, including Bob Arum, who knows that when there's enough money on the table, you can split it up. 50% of a lot is a whole lot better than 100% of nothing. And when you have smart people that can express, that can work out the numbers, and you have reasonable people, you can make a deal. But Mayweather has this lofty, he has this inflated view of himself that he won't agree to anything less than 65%. When he starts talking like that, they're not ready to yet sit down at the table. I don't think Manny needs Mayweather. If Manny beats Cotto, as I expect him to do, Mayweather's going to have to come chasing Manny. Manny's the star. He's the man. Everyone will have to come chasing him. It's just like the days with Oscar de la Hoya. Oscar didn't have to chase anyone. There came a point when just getting in the ring with Oscar was the goal. And I think Manny is at that point now.
And now to provide punctuation mark to our interview, a period, when is the retirement for Pacquiao?
The retirement? Gee, I don't see it coming for a while. I mean, he has so many interests, and I know that politics is calling him. I would hate to see him abbreviate a legendary boxing career in order to enter politics. But he seems to be one of the best multitaskers I've ever seen. So maybe he can handle both. But right now, I think he's at the very peak of his abilities as a boxer, and I can easily see him fighting for another 3 to 5 years.
Thank you very, very much to Mr. Gary Gittleson right here on Public Affairs, OE TV.